All right, welcome back, YouTube, to another episode of My History of Said Game System. Today we're looking at our friend the Super Nintendo here, who, if you look at it, you can see it's a little more yellow than some of my other systems. That is because this is my original system. In fact, this is the oldest system I have that I had as a kid. You know, a lot of these things I've shown you guys I got later as an adult at some time. This system I have legitimately had since the early 90s, and so strap in. There's a lot of memories, a lot I have to say about this one. I got stuff spread out all over the place, just favorite games. My first game, of course, you can see up here. It's what most of us got first, Super Mario World. And then, yeah, some just games I like and some rare ones, and of course the accessories. So I'll just dive right on in. I'll give a job update first. So concerning the job, still applying. Unfortunately, been hearing back and getting some, thanks for applying, but we're going to move further, forward with someone else, which is a bummer. I've replied to some of them and just asked for feedback. And so hopefully I feel like in this situation, good constructive feedback helps. And so, for anybody out there who's a recruiter or like a hiring manager, when you got to turn someone down, I know it's a lot of work, but if you could give them just a little bit of feedback, whether they need more experience or maybe it was something with their cover letter or resume, anything helps. But anyway, let's get to the fun stuff. Let's start talking about the SNES or Super Nintendo. So my history with this system, I definitely knew about it. I used to see it in my local Walmart, in the kiosk. I don't know if you guys, anybody that was around in the early 90s, remember those kiosks that had the little plastic that came out with the controller? I remember I would always play it every time we go to Walmart. And I remember I'd get so upset because it was a timer that would restart the game. And so you could never progress past a certain point. I would always try to get real far. I started trying to get real fast, but it would always cut off when I got to a specific point. But I still enjoyed playing it. I remember my imagination just went wild with the Yoshi's World overworld map and seeing him move on the screen and the music and the color. I mean, it was just, for me, it was such a large leap over the original Nintendo. Even with Super Mario Brothers 3 looking great, this just blew me away, especially with the Genesis out at the time. It was just, I remember I was really excited because I was like, all right, we're going to have a new Nintendo. And so, yeah, I remember I wanted one. I can't remember if my neighbor John had one before me. He probably did, more than likely. I know I played at his house on his Super Nintendo. I remember we played games. I remember playing a lot of King Griffey Jr. baseball at his house. And I think Bomberman 2, Super Mario Kart. Gosh, I'm trying to think. There's a host of games that he rented or we played. Street Fighter, of course. Maybe Mortal Kombat. I don't remember. I remember renting that, but we played a lot of games at his house. But I remember when I got ours, Santa brought it. We woke up Christmas morning and there it was, set up and with Super Mario World. And me and my brother, we loved it. We played it so much. I want to say one of the next games we got was Super Mario Kart, because I really wanted that one. My neighbor had it. We loved it, just racing and battling. And I remember I got that. And gosh, me just driving my brother nuts when I would win. I was kind of an a-hole with him. He was 3 years younger than me, and I was that kind of jerk kid that would oh, I'm winning, I'm kicking your butt. I remember I used to just upset him so much. I don't know if it's because my neighbor he didn't really do it to me, but he would beat me all the time. But it was just, yeah, I look back and it's funny, but it's silly. But so we got that. I remember one year for Christmas, we got a select list of games. We got American Gladiators, which I still have. That was probably my least favorite game I own today, but I still have it because it was a childhood game I had. We got Last Action Hero, which was terrible. I remember being excited because I liked the movie with Arnold, but the game on the Super Nintendo was so bad. I felt bad for my parents because your parents buy you these games and you want to show you're appreciative, but you know what? The next two games they got made up for it. So they got Mega Man X, which is just a masterpiece. It's one of those games I can literally sit down, pick up, and play at any time. The gameplay is good. The music is good. The graphics are good. It is just a masterclass in Mega Man and in 16-bit gaming. And you got to remember, it was the first X game. So going from the original series to that, just the wall jump, the dash, it was incredible. I don't even know how to just... And it was the first Mega Man game I ever beat. I remember it took me a while to do it, but I finally did it. And it's funny, years later, I'd find secrets that I didn't know, and so I was continually, getting new things, like the Hadouken and just other power-ups I never found. Because, folks, let's remember, the internet wasn't really around back then. The only way you were finding out secrets was from a friend or, if you saw it in a magazine. But we played the heck out of that game. Had so much good memories playing that game with friends and by myself. The music is just so good. And then the last game, Sky Blazer. Now this game, I'd never heard of it, had no idea what it was. Put it in. Interesting, I think it was Sony ImageSoft that did it. And just found a hidden gem. To me, it was just a great game that my parents picked. But today, if you look at that game, it actually is kind of valuable, and it's really good. I could sit down and play that game anytime again. Music, graphics, gameplay, it's all there. It's good, and definitely a hidden gem for the system. I think Natsume had something to do with it as well. They always put out good stuff. But so we played those for years. And then later on is kind of when I started discovering RPGs. And so my neighbor, he had gotten Breath of Fire 1, and it was the first RPG I'd ever seen. I used to watch him play it, and my mind really just got so creative and imaginary with the world and the characters, and I wanted that game so bad, and I did end up getting that game for Christmas. And my brother ended up getting Breath of Fire 2. So I think we got him a little later, or I got one year, and then he got it the next year. And then he also got Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals, and Super Mario RPG. So we really started to get into RPGs at the tail end of the Super Nintendo, and that's what we were playing. And we beat Breath of Fire 1, 2, Lufia 2, and Super Mario RPG. I believe I 100%ed Breath of Fire 1, did not 2, did not Super Mario RPG or Lufia 2. There were some things in those that were a little tougher, but played through the stories, loved the games. The system is just a masterclass in RPGs. To me, the Super Nintendo and the PlayStation 1 are the RPG havens. But you got to understand, this is coming from someone who lived during that time period and was into the Japanese traditional role play style games, like the what do they call it? The battle system, turn-based. That's what I like. I like the characters. PlayStation 1 and Super Nintendo had that in spades, and I know a lot of people are going to argue the PlayStation 2 and other systems out there, but for me, nothing can touch PlayStation 1 and Super Nintendo. They are the golden era of RPGs for me. I don't know what it is. I feel like the developers had to somehow use the music and the story and certain things about the game to make up for the graphic limitations at the time. The limitations that the systems put on the way their game was, they had to do things to make you feel in different ways. And I just feel like that's a lost art now. I will say on the Switch, there are some gorgeous HD 2D games. I love that style is coming back. So, but so yeah, so we played that stuff. As time went on and we got newer consoles, the Super Nintendo kind of took a back seat. We still played it when I had birthday parties and rented various games. I have a lot of memories going to the Hastings and Blockbuster renting games for the system. And just memories of like seeing certain games. Like I remember when Donkey Kong Country came out. First time I saw that, I was blown away. Like, this is the Super Nintendo? It was just so amazing. Nothing looked like that at the time. And then they came out with 2 and 3. I own all 3 and love all 3. I've 100% completed all 3. That is just a fantastic trilogy. Challenging, but fantastic. Yoshi's Island 2, or Yoshi's Island, Super Mario World 2, another really looker for the system. Killer Instinct. I'd say Mortal Kombat, but I don't know, I was disappointed with no, when they censored everything. Yeah, there's just so many good games for the system. A ton of beat 'em ups. I got a ton over there. I'll talk about some of the ones I pulled out, but I could sit here and go on about the just plethora of games. So later on, when I moved out of my parents' house, you're kind of in that period in high school and college and early adulthood where I really wasn't playing, but I kept it. I kept this thing. And when I discovered Game Over, I told this story in my NES video. I had an ex-girlfriend get me a Nintendo and Dragon Warrior and Zelda. When I finally went to go check out Game Over, I saw their Super Nintendo selection. They just had so many games. Either I remember renting as a kid or that I always wanted to play. And so I went on a binge, just picking up things. Like my neighbor, he had John, he had a Link to the Past. I always thought it was so awesome. I loved watching him play that. I always wanted it. I never had a chance to rent it. Picked that up. King of Dragons, one of my all-time favorite arcade games. Beat 'em ups. We rented it all the time. Picked that up. And a bunch of others. And I'll get into more of those later. And so, yeah, just continued to play it, collect for it. Introduced my son and his brother to it. My son, I don't know if I've spoken too much. He is 13. He is really hit or miss on retro systems. He's a big Switch and Wii U, Wii guy. He loves those 3. To get him to go a little further back on anything else is tough. He'll play the GameCube and the N64 a good amount. He actually likes the Super Nintendo a good amount too. He loves Super Metroid and Mega Man X. I'm a huge Super Metroid fan too, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. But yeah, he loves those. As well as other Super Nintendo games. Super Mario World too especially. In fact, me and him just played through it this year and beat it together. And so that was a really fun thing to do with him. We don't get to play too many games together because he's just into so much different things than what I am, that we just don't line up completely. But there are games we have beat, and this is one that we did beat together, and it was really cool sitting down and doing that with him. So that's a really good memory for me. Trying to think of other memories. We've done some tournaments on the Super Nintendo. We actually did one 2 years ago, not 2024 but 2023. We actually did a Super Mario World tournament. We had the original system with the CRT here. I had the Snes Mini hooked up to the HD TV over here, and then my Super NT downstairs with a cart. And we did a speed race where we started a time. We had a time slot, and we said go, and we had 3 teams that were racing, playing, and we played from about 7 to 10, 3 hours. And for the person that got the farthest won, and my team won. Me and my son's brother, we were together, and we beat the game, and we beat every level except the special world. And it was close. You could hear each other's TVs, and we were talking mess. Oh, it was so fun. I really look forward to when I get my next job so we can start tournaments back up, because I miss them so much. They're just a fun way to compete, play games, and make an event out of it with food and drinks. But so anyway, let's get into some of my accessories and games and all that. I may tell some more stories at the end here, but I'll start with let's start with the controller actually. Just so iconic. You know, Nintendo took what worked with the Nintendo and just upped their game with the Super Nintendo. This controller is so much more comfortable to hold with it being rounded. Just the way a lot of the buttons work with the concave and then the rounded. You know, there's different button combinations you do, and this controller is set up perfectly for it. All the buttons feel good with the triggers and everything. And these are fairly durable. I mean, if you're too rough on them, they can break, but I love this controller. I have several of these, obviously, because I'll get to the little tap here. But yeah, and you can see the inspiration this has had and several controllers that have come out in years. This is really the basis. I mean, you look at the way the Xbox and PlayStation and current Nintendo controllers are. I mean, they all kind of have this sort of setup in one way or another. The D-pad. I believe this was the first controller to have triggers, if I'm not mistaken. And so just what an innovative controller. Love it. And getting to the only other accessory I have for it, the multi-tap. I bought this originally to use with Secret of Mana, actually. And it's funny, I have a good story on my Secret of Mana pickup. I actually found it at a flea market. Back when flea markets were good. I think my son's mom actually haggled and got the guy to drop it to 30 or 40 bucks. I don't remember. But yeah, I got a copy of Secret of Mana and really wanted to play it 3-player. And so I remember I found this, tracked it down, picked one up from my local gaming shop. And you know what's sad? I still haven't gone through the whole thing 3-player. I think we've started it. But I really need to do that. I know it's a good game, and it's one I definitely need to get to. Also, though, have used this with Super Bomberman and Super Bomberman 2. Fantastic games for multiplayer fun. Also, WWF Raw is a really good one for this, because you can play up to 4-player, Tag Team, Royal Rumble. And that reminds me, those are some other games I got when I was younger with my parents. Monday Night Raw and Royal Rumble. Those two were so fun. We would rent those, and I remember when I finally got Royal Rumble, I just loved it. We played it so much. Again, this controller was perfect for it. And then when Monday Night Raw came out, it was even better with more options, more players. I eventually got WrestleMania, the arcade game, and I really enjoyed it. And that's until I found out how much better other versions were. My neighbor got the game on the PlayStation 1, and I remember seeing his, and it had the actual music, and I was like, what? And so not too long ago, a few years ago, I actually traded in my Super Nintendo copy and got a copy of the game for the 32X. Has more characters, looks better, music's better, gameplay's better. It only runs at 30 frames per second, but I'm okay with that. I just like the game a lot better. It seems like a lot more of the features are there, but this thing is great if you want some fun, multiplayer fun for more than just 2 people. So, all right, let's talk about some of my favorites here. I'll start with some of the repros. We'll just get those out of the way. So again, I think I've talked about it. I don't really emulate. I don't really buy repros too much unless they're things we never got here that have been translated. And so I'm going to start with 2 of the big dogs, Dragon Quest V and Dragon Quest VI. These are great games, especially this one. If you got to play one, play this one. This one looks better, but this one is where it's at in terms of gameplay and story. But they're both really good. I highly recommend these. I picked these up a number of years ago. I have not fully beaten them yet, but I definitely want to get back to them at some point. I have a bad habit of playing through games and then stopping. I really, it's a problem when you have a lot of games, but definitely recommend these. It's really a shame we never got these on the Super Nintendo, because I know I really would have loved them had we. But so yes, Dragon Warrior 5 and 6. right, I'm going to continue with the repros here. Tales of Fantasia. Yes, this originally came out on the Super Nintendo. I know we got a GBA version here, but it's pretty bad. It's not worth picking up. It's the one time where I would say, go get a repro or find a different way to play that game, because that version is just so bad. This, or if you get it on the PlayStation 1, I actually have a PlayStation 1 repro of this as well, because they're actually slightly different. The world map is different. It's more of a 2D style here on the PlayStation, and it kind of has a 2D, 3D sort of effect. And there are other little differences between the two. I wanted both. But again, if you like 2D Tales, because you look at most of the Tales game, they're all in 3D. I really loved the look of this one and the two on the PlayStation 1. Gosh, I forget what they're called now. I can't remember. I have them both though, but they're both really good along with this one. Highly recommend it. Really great game. So check that one out if you can. Let's move to another repro. The original Star Ocean. Now I know this got a Switch kind of HD upified remake, and I think they put this game out on the PSP. First story, I can't remember. I wanted the original with the original look, with the original style that was on the Super Nintendo. And I believe this actually, maybe Tales of Fantasia, have some like audio verbiage out of different characters and like songs where people sing. Like, these came on huge carts, these two games. And I always wanted the original. You know, I only have the second one on the PlayStation. I'm not a big 3D RPG guy. I like the ones that make me use my imagination for. This is the style I love. And again, just great game. Has several endings. I believe just like the second one. Highly recommended. Again, you can get it on the Switch or I believe the PSP. They are a little different, but for the most part, very similar. But I wanted. And this one I believe I bought from Project Retro Games. Radical Reggie in his videos talks a lot about them, and they put out some good releases. I will say this took about a year to come in because he was waiting on like a poster or something. So depending on what's going on over there, it can take some time. But when you get the final package, there's a lot of goodies in here, and everything is definitely quality. So another RPG that I recommend for the system. You guys can see why I just love this system. All right, last repro. Terranigma, folks. The last part of the Quintet trilogy. Now, I do have Soul Blazer and Illusion of Gaia. I've actually beaten Soul Blazer, 100%ed it a couple years ago, and loved it. It was one me and my brother used to rent as a kid. And I absolutely love that game. I need to go back and play Illusion of Gaia. I've started it and then stopped, and I really need to get back to it. But I knew and had heard of this one. We never got it, only came out in Europe and Japan. And so when I saw that there was a repro of it, I had to get it. I was like, I wanted to finish the trilogy, and I hope someday to play through the rest of this. Because I did start this again, and it has that great gameplay similar to Illusion of Gaia and Soul Blazer. The graphics and sort of the environment in this game are really interesting. Some of the blur effects over some of the overworld when you look like you're kind of underground or something, it's really trippy. But I highly recommend this game. So definitely check out Terranigma if you get the chance. All right, what else we got here? Okay, now to start talking about some of my favorites that aren't repro. And so we could just start right here, I think. Sunset Riders. Love beat 'em ups on the Super Nintendo. And love this game. You know, I first saw this game in the arcade, and when I saw that the Super Nintendo got a port, we rented it, and I loved it. And years later, when I saw it at the retro game store, had to pick it up. Very happy with it. Just has so many funny quotes, like when you beat the first boss, and he's like, "Bury me with my money." I just love it. I know there's a Genesis version, but I like this version better. There's more characters. It seems a bit more colorful. I know the Genesis has some stuff where it's like less censored in some cases, but I highly recommend this game. This is super fun to play by yourself or with a friend. So yeah, track this down if you can. All right. Sticking on the beat 'em ups here. Turtles in Time. Probably one of the best beat 'em up games ever made. At least what most people say. And definitely one of the best for the system. Again, I have so many memories renting this as a kid with my brother or playing it at my buddy John's house. This was just so fun. This is one of those games that when you'd rent it, you'd play it, you'd beat it, and then the next day you'd turn it back on and play it and beat it again. Definitely a game I can turn on anytime. I've had a lot of fun memories playing this with my son and his brother and their cousins and even my own buddies to this day. This game is just timeless. And you can find it. There's like a Turtles collection now that has all these type of games on it. The Hyperstone Heist and the NES ones and some of the Game Boy ones. So it's an easy way to get this. But I don't know. I just love playing this on the Super Nintendo. Just super fun game with great music. And it looks the way that us 90s, 80s kids know the Turtles from the original cartoon. So can't say enough high things about this game. Definitely play it if you get the chance. All right, what else do we got here? Let's see here. Okay. I spoke about this one earlier. Here we go. King of Dragons. Played so much of this with my neighbor and again, renting it with my brother. I just love this game. This is my favorite beat 'em up on the Super Nintendo. I know most people will say Turtles in Time or maybe Final Fight 3 or maybe even Knights of the Round. I have Knights of the Round 2. Great game. And I have Final Fight 2. I don't have Final Fight 3. Hopefully someday. But this is my favorite. I don't know what it is about this. The Dungeons and Dragons style look. It just looks so much like an arcade game. Your how you level up, how you get new equipment. And this game is really hard if you jump into it. I can actually say I've beaten this without cheating. For years, there's a cool cheat you can do, but I remember I eventually got to the point where I could beat it without cheating. I got really good at this game. That's how much I love it. Super fun with a friend. It's fun by yourself, but playing this with someone else is really where it's at. We have played this so much, me and my son and his brother, to the wee ends of the night, and just I love this. The only thing that would make this better is if it had the 3-player option you can get in arcades. I believe there's some Switch collections that have this on it out. So you can play it that way, but I don't know. I just love having the OG. And this is something I don't know if I'll ever get rid of this. I just love this game. So play this if you can. All right. Next, let's get to one of those games I mentioned I got really early on. Mega Man X. Now, I've already spoken so much about it. I don't really know how much more there is to tell. Honestly, this is just a game I highly recommend you get. In recent years, my son has actually started to challenge me to play this game in different ways. Like, when I would always play it, I would always play it the way you should do it. Or maybe I'd go out of order. But I remember sometime in the last couple of years, he actually challenged me to an all X-Buster run. And I was like, wow, I've never done that. And so I did it, and I actually beat it that way. And so if you're looking for a new challenge, this game, you can create your own challenges within the game on how you want to beat it. Maybe you don't go for the heart takes. Maybe you don't go for the upgrades. There are so many different ways you can play this. I just say, play this. It's so good. To me, the best X game in the entire series. I need to play more of X4. I hear that one's great. I actually have X2 and X3, but this game is so fantastic. Play it. All right, what else we got? Super Mario RPG. Yes, I spoke that my brother got this. I just want to say something, and I know this is going to be very controversial. This is my all-time favorite Mario game. All-time. Love this game. When this came out in 1996, I remember it came out right before the N64, so we had seen the 64. I don't know if I had yet, but when I saw Mario in 3D for the first time, and it had turn-based mechanics, and then the time button presses, the music, the art style, the visuals, that blend of Square Enix and Nintendo, it was unbelievable. They really need to get together and do something like this again. This game to me blows away every Paper Mario game, every Mario and Luigi game. This is the pinnacle of Mario RPGs. Call me an old head, that's just my opinion. And you know, I did get the new one on Switch, played all the way through it. I 99%ed it, just like I 99%ed this one. There's one thing I can't do in the two games, and it's get the super suit. Doing that jump 100 times, I just can't do it. I've got the scarf. I can't get the suit. I think on the new game I got up to 70-something jumps one time, and I finally just said, forget it. This is never going to happen. But I highly recommend you play this. If you can't play it on Super Nintendo or the SNES Mini, play it on the Switch Remake. They're both good. I will say I actually still like this better than the Switch Remake, and it's because of the visual style. And don't get me wrong, the Switch one looks great, but what I like to tell people is, if you want a Nintendo-looking Super Mario RPG, play the Switch one. If you want a Squaresoft-looking Super Mario RPG, play this one. This one looks darker, grittier. When you look at the enemies and kind of the grit and the texture of them, you can see that Squaresoft touch. On the new one, you don't really see that. You can feel it in the gameplay, but the visuals are so Nintendo. It is Nintendo all around. So this still stands alone, as even though it has a remake, you can still play this and get a lot out of it. This is the Super Mario RPG hard version, because the new one has a bunch of quality of life features too. So great game. Let's see here, what else? Alrighty. Let's get to... Okay. Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals. In the original rental case that we got the game in. Now, I have the manual, as you can see, and the card only. Really expensive game. Really good game, though. I do have the first game as well. I got it years later, and man, I remember when I got it, I was excited, and I started playing it. And it's okay, but this blows it out of the water. It's funny, I remember my brother rented this game, and when I first saw it, I was like, what the heck is that? Maybe the 64 was out at the time, I don't remember. But I wasn't impressed at first, but then when I got into it and started playing it or watching him, I was super impressed. The music in this game is good. This game is so ahead of its time in terms of the way it works. It's one of those games where the enemies are on the screen. You only run into random battles in the overworld. In dungeons, you can choose when you fight an enemy, and there's neat little Zelda-esque style. There's like a wheel where you can choose, so you can freeze things and get around them or use different powers. There's a lot of puzzling within the dungeons, some that'll drive you insane. I remember there was one near the beginning of the game in this tower before you fight one of the big Sinistrals, where I just had I could not figure it out. I was stuck forever. And then one day, me and my brother figured it out, and we finally got to move through the game. There's also a 99 level tower within the game, which is a game in itself. It's super hard. I think I got to level like 70 or 80 something once and died. And when you die, you don't keep anything. You can run into this item where it lets you leave the dungeon. And then you can keep these special, I think they came in blue chest items when you leave, but everything else goes back. And so essentially to get good at this, you got to keep playing it and keep collecting more items to keep more and keep tracking further. And I just never had the patience for that back then. I think I could now. I just haven't gone back and done it. But there is a wealth of content. So cool, all the different ways of travel, whether it was, I believe it was a submarine, a ship, and a flying ship. And the story, especially the ending, is pretty heart-wrenching. But this is a great game and great story. and fun battles. The battle system is good. Some of the best boss battle music I've ever heard in a game. Please play this if you can. Again, pricey but good. All right. So now we're going to get to some of my all-time favorite Super Nintendo games. And so I'm going to start with one that became recent. Super Metroid. I love this game. It's funny, I bought this game cart only from a guy I worked with out of his storage unit years ago, probably about 10 years ago or so. And I sat on it for a couple years, and one day I decided I'm going to play this game, and I played it and loved it and was like, man, this is such a great game. The music, the atmosphere, the visuals, the gameplay, the different ways you can play it. I think at the time I got the worst ending, which is Samus, because I didn't know what I was doing. Samus in her full suit. But I beat it, right? And so after that, it kind of sat on the shelf, and years later, I know I've told this story, but I met my neighbor, and I had him up here, and he saw all the games we had, and he told me this was his favorite. And so we started playing through the Metroid series, and so this was the first one we played through, and he's so good at this game. He would like sequence break. I didn't even know that was a thing you could do. And so we got to play the game in a different manner, and when we beat it, we actually got the second ending, where you see Samus's kind of face a little bit, and so that was cool. Never gotten the full suit off ending, maybe someday, but I had a blast playing this with him. Paul, thank you. We had a good time playing this, and this was the start to us beating every Metroid game in the series that you could play on a large television. We never did beat the 3DS Forces one or Metroid 2 Remake or Prime Pinball because we didn't have the ability to play them on a large TV. But all the other ones we did. The NES, the SNES, and all the other ones. So I recommend everybody play this game, whether on the Switch Shop, the real hardware, the SNES Classic, any way you can, you're going to have a great time with this game. This game has aged so well. And so I ended up picking up a full complete in box copy after we were completing near the end because, you know, after we completed the series, I wanted to have CIB copies of every game in the series. This was one of the more expensive ones. This and Metroid 2 were the two big ones that cost quite a bit, but I'm super happy to have this. All right. Two of my all-time favorite games now. So I have a top 5 favorite games. These are number 4 and 5. And again, this is just my list. And everybody's going to think this is silly. You got to understand, these were my first 2 RPGs. RPGs are my favorite genre. And I just love these games. I love the music. I love the visuals. I love the story. I love the gameplay. The grinding can be a little tedious now, but I don't care. I love the worlds. I used to imagine myself as different characters in these games and my friends as the other characters and just lay there and imagine us in the world and me going and visiting them. I'm telling you, I had a wild imagination. But so I'm going to start with number 5 here. Breath of Fire 2 in its rental case that my brother got back in the day. I remember when my dad got this, he was like, this is an antique game. I think this cost him more money than what he was accustomed to back then. And Dad, if you ever see this, I just want to say thank you to you and Mom and Pat, you too, because I think I either traded or paid you for this. I don't know how this came with me, but somehow I got it. But boy, we loved this game. This was originally my brother's, but we both played it. I have beaten it the terrible way, which is where you kind of give up right before the end. I have beaten it the way where you sacrifice yourself to be the big dragon, and I've beaten it the way where you get the town. Love this game. Love the characters. Love the music. Love the gameplay. There is a bit of grinding in this, and it gets really heavy in certain dungeons. But when you love the art style and everything that I mentioned as much as I do, you just don't care. You're just happy to be in the world. At least I was. And back in the 90s, when we didn't have much to do, I had plenty of time on my hands. And so I played this game. We used to rent this game so much. I remember we would try to rent it again, and hope our save was on there. I remember one time, me and my buddy Brad, we stayed up, and I remember I fell asleep. He was still up in the morning playing. He had gotten so far. I was like, "You were up all night?" He's like, "Yeah." And then he went to bed. And I remember my friend John, he played a lot of this too. I don't know if he ever beat it or not. He never liked this one as much as the first game. And I do prefer the first game, but I do love this game. The one thing I will say about this game is the translation is off. Capcom, the first game they used Squaresoft to translate it. They decided to do it themselves with this one, and you can tell it does have a rough translation. You can get around and figure it out, but it would be nice. I know they have patches out there, and this is another game that's on the Switch eShop. It's on, there are ways to play it. And I believe they've done patch translations out there and things of that manner. There's also a GBA version, but I think the translation's exactly the same, if I recall. But love this game. My number 5 game of all time. Not just Super Nintendo, all time. I just love this. So anyway, moving on to my number 4 game of all time. The original. And yes, I have this complete in box. This is my original box from the 90s. So you can see it's pretty crusty, pretty beaten up. You know, I've taken this thing out of here multiple times. I love this game. And John, if you ever see this video, man, I have you to thank, because watching you play at your house, you got me into RPGs, man. You opened the door, and this was the game that did it. I remember borrowing your copy and starting my own game and playing on your saves and not saving. And just this game, when I turn it on and I hear the music or I see certain things, it can just really bring me back. And you know, it's funny, I've gone back to play this game throughout different periods of my life. You know, whether it was at my original house I grew up in Round Rock, or in the house in Georgetown that I went to high school in, or I have a really good memory when I lived with my buddy John at an apartment we lived in with another gal, and I remember playing this, and it was right around the time Coldplay's second album came out, A Rush of Blood to the Head, and I would play that in the background when I was playing this, and my God, it just really brings me back. Like, when I play certain periods of the game, I think of Coldplay and that album. And then even letting my son play this for the first time, watching him like walk around the world and like in different areas where there's farm animals, him talk to the animals, and just him kind of using his imagination in the world. Now, he's not an RPG guy whatsoever. My son, I think the only RPG he's liked is Undertale. He'll play a lot of that one, but I haven't been able to get him to any other ones. Oh, he likes the Mario RPGs on his 3DS and DS2. He's beaten Bowser's Inside Story, and I think Paper Mario Paper Jam. Not sure if he's done any others yet, but anyway, this game, it's just so good. I highly recommend anyone play this. I don't feel like it's as grindy as the second one. I feel like it's a little easier. I like the dragon transformations better because you just really can use them quite a bit. You feel powerful in this game when you start upgrading and getting your powers. Flying around on the bird or turning into a fish. All the characters are likable. And Capcom even throws a few Easter eggs, if you know how to find them, to some of their other franchises in here. So, again, my number 4 game of all time. Highly recommend this. Again, on the Switch eShop. Find a way to play it. All right. Now we'll talk about probably my 3 rarest games on the system. And I don't know what's more rare or what order these would go into. I just know they're all 3 kind of big hitters for the system. And so, let's see here. You know what? We'll start with this guy. Mega Man X3. Definitely one of my rarest games on the system. Came out late. Came out in 96. Has some chips in here to allow it to do some of the visuals it does. This is a fun game. It isn't as good as the first, in my opinion. This is a hard game. I remember playing this after playing 1 and 2, and two's definitely harder than 1, but this makes 2 like a cakewalk. Just they really made this game very challenging with getting the items and having to go back to levels and do things out of order with fighting bosses, because they're like optional things you can do to get like the best ending. And those enemies are really tough. I mean, this game really will push you to your limits. But things like the suits you would get and like the different upgrades, although if you wait you don't get these other special upgrades, you can get them all at the end in a special suit. But I remember my brother picked this up for me for Christmas. Thank you, Pat. And I remember he paid $100 years ago. And I remember that was pricey at the time. Now this thing goes for way more than that. And so, Pat, thank you for this game. I really, really enjoy it. Love it. But it's definitely not my favorite of the X series. I definitely would recommend 1 or 2 over it. But hey, if you can find it or find a way to play it, play this game. It's good. Just be prepared for a challenge, especially the last boss fight. The fight against Sigma in this game is brutal. Make sure you go in with all tanks full, because you're going to need them. Yeah. One of my rare ones right there. Okay. Another rare one, and probably one of my best finds ever. Pocky and Rocky 2. This is another one that I played at my friend John's house. He would rent this. And then I loved it playing with him. So we started renting it. We played this and rented it all the time. And I remember as time went on, I always wondered, what that game was and where I could find it. And I remember there was sometime in the 2000s. Early 2000, like between 2012 and 2013, I think, where I really started looking for this game. There was a period where me and my son's mom and my son, we'd go to flea markets. And so we went to one, and I'll never forget, I saw this at a vendor for $8. And I was like, how much? I thought she said 80. I was ready to pay her because this game is expensive. She said 8. I just paid her the money and walked off. No haggling at all. Now, years later, I actually picked up a, I believe this is it, a tool to open up my games. And I went through all my games to check them. You want to authenticate your games if you're going to retro shops or buying anyone online or going to festivals. And I remember when I went to go authenticate them, by the way, I only had one game that was fake, Space Megaforce, which I did buy from Game Over. I reached out to them, reached out to the owner. Really cool. He gave me a $50 credit because it had happened years earlier. And so I ended up getting an authentic copy later and then selling the other copy and letting people know, hey, it's a repro. But I was so scared when I was opening this one, and then it authenticated, and I was so happy. But man, if you love 2-player or 1-player, kind of top-down shooters, this is a kooky, fun game, and I highly recommend this. Expensive though. I don't know any other way to play it other than on the Super Nintendo either. They do have kind of a Switch sort of refresh, which I do have. I forget what they call it, Pocky and Rocky Remastered or Refreshed, or I don't remember what it's called. But it's a good way to get into this series as well. But this is my favorite game in the series. I also have the first game too that I got at a festa a number of years ago. But I always will love this one. It's so good. All right, and my last rare game, and I don't even know if I'd say this game is rare, but it's expensive. Yes, I have Earthbound. It is just cartridge only. The box is just well out of reach. I have had times where I could get the big manual, but I don't know. I just didn't jump on it. I didn't feel like spending the money on it at the time. But I don't know. If I see it again, maybe I'll try to get it. But now who knows what it's priced at. But I have played this game almost to the end. I am a bit of a completionist when it comes to RPGs. And so right now, I've already gone through the dream world. I have every character. We're all high level, like 90-something. but I'm trying to get these items that only drop from enemies. And if anybody that's played this game that knows, trying to get those items is really difficult. I believe it's a crest I'm trying to get. Star or meteor crest. It's the best one in the game. And I haven't even got... I think I've gotten one that I found. I can't remember. But I want to get them for most of the characters, and I just can't seem to get it. I don't know. I may eventually just say screw it and move on, because I really want to finish this game. I've loved what I've played of this game so far, and I know I'm like right near the end, and so it does bother me. But yeah, this passed me right by in the 90s. I never knew about it, never heard of it, don't remember seeing it. And so I didn't find out about it till later from YouTubers and people talking about it. And I remember when I first saw it, I had no interest. Because if you noticed, all the RPGs I have, they're all like medieval. And so I eventually succumbed to the hype. And I think I picked this up for somewhere between 200 and 250 years ago. From a gentleman I mentioned in my Turbo Duo video, Tim, over at Gamers. Thanks, Tim. Got me a great game here. I'm happy to have supported your business you had. But when I finally played it, man, the music, the trippiness, this is definitely a product of the 90s, and I love it for it. I encourage anybody to play this, to take a step back and see what things were like for us back in the day growing up, as well as in kind of a fantasy modern day world. Cherished and happy to have this game. So... And with that said, that is a bunch of my favorites, a bunch of my rares, my first game here. There's a bunch of other games down in there that I have that I didn't bring out because I just love the system. There'd be way too much, you know, Super Mario All-Stars, Super Mario Kart, I don't know, Super Castlevania 4, Contra 3, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. There's just so much on that system. And that's all I can think of just right at the moment here. So how about we get you guys out of here on some Super Mario World? So let's go ahead, and as you can see, we've played a lot of this. So you know what? Let's just jump into A here. And here we are in Special World. I think we'll back out of here. You know what? Since I'm near the end, I'll just beat the game for you guys. How about that? We won't watch the whole ending or anything, but I'll at least take Bowser down. And again, this is another one of those systems that I have plugged into a surge protector that is plugged into this TV, where when this TV turns on, it's the only way the system will come on. So that's why I have both on. It's annoying, but it doesn't bother me too much. And I'm playing this game through HD Retrovision component cables. This system is unique because this is kind of the system I had where I learned about video quality. I had RF on this system all the way up until like I want to say sometime, I think it was 2013. I was using RF. And I remember I would look at it on my big LCD HD TV and be like, man, what is all that fuzziness? Like, why is it so fuzzy? Like, I don't remember it looking like that back in the 90s. And I think I had a conversation with someone at Game Over about it, and they're like, well, I remember, my RF connector actually broke. And they told me, well, why don't you get a better cable? You know, this is kind of the basic quality. And I was like, no, I want to keep that cable. And the reason was, at the time, was I wanted to be able to have all my systems hooked up at one time. And I had the NES and the SNES hooked up, like daisy-chained with their RF connector. And so that's what I used. And so it allowed me to have those two hooked up, my N64 hooked up through composite, I think is what I had at the time. And I can't remember if I had my PlayStation 2 hooked up. I think I had a component already for my PlayStation 2. I actually think I had upgraded those cables already. But I can't remember. I may have not even had that. And what else did we have? I think we had a Wii through a composite as well. I know I had a PlayStation 1 through a composite. We just had a lot of composite and RF. And when the guy mentioned that, I think I started looking into videos. And so I eventually found out that, hey, there's another slot on the back of the Super Nintendo. And so I was like, okay, it uses this composite cable also. And so I remember I bought the composite cable for the Super Nintendo, and it was night and day from RF on the LCD TV. All the like fuzzy, weird, like stuff that was going on in the background just completely disappeared. It completely cleaned the image up. And I was just in disbelief. I couldn't believe how well this cable made things change. Oh, whoops. I'm getting distracted here. And so anyway, that led me down the rabbit hole of video quality, and I started updating my other game systems. But it all started with the Super Nintendo, and I remember I looked up, there was a connector called S-Video. And I remember I started looking for like the best S-Video cable. And I remember I found this purple monster S-Video cable, and I hooked my Super Nintendo up with that. And it's funny, I always try to aim Mario where he's far enough away so they meet in the middle as close as they can. I just think the fireworks look cool. But so I saw S-Video, and it cleaned it up even more. Like, the color bleed wasn't there. Everything just looked so sharp and crisp. And I loved my S-Video. I kept it for years. You know, I started upgrading every system I had to S-Video. My N64, my PlayStation 1, my PS2 I did component. And then when HD Retrovision came out and showed their cables, I was like, oh, there's RGB component now. And this system was the first one. And I remember when I first got the cables, I couldn't tell right away. It wasn't until I played Turtles in Time. There are these little colored speckles under which character you pick. Purple for Donnie, blue for Leo, red for Raph, and orange for Mikey. And that's the game where I noticed it. On the S-Video, they weren't really pronounced. The RGB HD Retrovision component cables really blew that color up and made them pronounced. And that's when I could tell, okay, I made the right decision. And then I started looking, because to me, S-Video sharpens everything up with splitting off the chroma and the luma. RGB then brightens the colors and gives you the good color depth. So, but there is Super Mario World, and that is my history on the Super Nintendo. I thank you guys for joining me for this long one. Take care, and we'll see you next time.